Think about the last time you went to the grocery store. You grabbed your usual stuff, nothing fancy, nothing extra, and when you got to the checkout, you felt that little jolt. That moment where you look at the total and think, that can't be right. But it is right, and it keeps happening every single week. You're not bad at budgeting. You're not spending more than you used to. The food just costs more, a lot more, and nobody in charge seems to want to talk about why. Since 2020, grocery prices in America have gone up roughly 25% on average. 25%. That means if you were spending $800 a month feeding your family 4 years ago, you're spending around $1,000 now for the exact same food, the same eggs, the same bread, the same ground beef. But here's the part that should make you pause. During those same years, the biggest food companies in America reported some of their highest profits ever. So while your grocery bill was climbing every week, the companies selling you that food were counting record earnings. That's not a supply chain problem. That's something else entirely. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's start with something you've definitely noticed, even if you couldn't name it. Your groceries seem smaller. The box of cereal that used to be full now has 4 inches of air at the top. The bag of chips you've bought for years feels lighter in your hand. The orange juice that used to come in a 64-ounce carton, where did that go? Now it's 52 ounces, same shelf, same price, sometimes higher. This practice has a name, shrinkflation, and it's everywhere right now. A grocery store clerk I came across described it perfectly. She said customers come up and ask where the big OJ went, and she has to explain that it's the same product, the company just quietly made it smaller and kept the price the same. You didn't imagine that. It's real, it's deliberate, and it's happening across hundreds of products you buy every week. Then there's protein. Eggs, meat, dairy, the things that used to anchor an affordable meal. Before 2022, a dozen eggs ran about $1.50 in most parts of the country. By late 2023, people were paying $4, $5, $6, sometimes more for that same dozen. Ground beef is up 30 to 40% depending on where you live. A package of chicken breasts that cost $7 now costs $10 or $11, and this hits families hard in ways that don't show up in any economic report. A cafeteria worker at an elementary school put it simply. She said they've had to take eggs off the breakfast menu twice in one school year because they couldn't afford them. Kids noticed, parents noticed, but it didn't make the news because millions of small moments like that one, they don't get counted. They just get absorbed quietly by families trying to get through the week. Here's what they won't tell you on the news. During the years when you were paying the most, when the inflation headlines were everywhere, the companies selling you food were making more money than they had in years. Kroger, Walmart, Tyson, Kraft Heinz, all of them reported profit growth that outpaced their own cost increases. A former food industry analyst explained it this way: the inflation headlines gave companies cover. They could raise prices beyond what their own costs justified and blame it on supply chains or labor or feed prices. And when the supply chain issues eased, the prices didn't come back down. The profits stayed. That gap between what it cost them and what they charged you, that's not inflation. That's a choice. And it's a choice that got made quietly across the industry while everyone was distracted. But it gets worse. And this part is important because it explains why this keeps happening and why it is not going to fix itself on its own. 4 companies control roughly 80% of beef processing in the United States. 3 companies dominate chicken. 2 companies control the majority of canned goods on your supermarket shelf. When an industry gets that consolidated, competition disappears, and when competition disappears, there is no pressure to keep prices reasonable. An independent grocery store owner described what that feels like from the inside. He said when one distributor raises prices, they all raise prices. There is no one else to call. You either pay what they are asking or your shelves go empty. Small stores can't fight that, and neither can you at the checkout counter. You are not choosing between 6 competitive options, you are choosing between versions of the same few companies. That has been building for 30 years. Most people just didn't feel it this sharply until recently. And here's where it really starts to hit home. Food bank usage has increased significantly in middle-income zip codes. Not just in low-income communities, in neighborhoods where people have jobs, where families own homes, where both parents are working. People who never imagined they'd need help buying groceries are quietly showing up. A teacher in a suburban school district described watching her students come in hungry. Kids whose parents work full-time, who live in decent neighborhoods, who just can't keep pace with what food costs now. And a nurse I read about said something that stuck with me. She said she got a raise last year, a real raise. And she's still taking home less effectively because groceries and rent and everything else went up faster than her paycheck did. You work harder, you earn more, and somehow it's still not enough. You're not bad at managing money. The math just doesn't work the way it used to. That's the piece that official reports keep missing. They'll say wage growth is up 4 or 5%, and technically that's true for a lot of workers. But grocery inflation over the past 4 years has been cumulative, stacking year after year. A 5% raise doesn't undo a 25% increase in food costs. Your real purchasing power, what your money actually buys, went down. Millions of American households are poorer in practical terms than they were before, even if the numbers on their paycheck went up. And when people feel that gap, when they stand at the checkout and feel it in their stomach, they sometimes wonder if they're doing something wrong. They're not. The numbers just aren't honest about what's actually happening to people. So what is actually happening? When you pull back and look at the full picture, a few things become clear. The consolidation of the food industry, fewer companies owning more of the supply chain, remove the competitive pressure that used to keep prices in check. Decades of deregulation in the food sector meant there was no one enforcing the rules that used to prevent one company from controlling too much of any one market. And when inflation arrived, it created the perfect moment for companies to raise prices aggressively, blame external factors, and keep the gains when those factors eased. This isn't a conspiracy. These are documented decisions, documented profits, documented market structures. You can look them up. The story is in the earnings reports. And this isn't only about groceries. The same pattern, consolidation, pricing power, wages that don't keep up, is showing up in housing and healthcare and childcare and utilities. The middle class isn't struggling because people are spending recklessly. Essential costs have simply outpaced wages for years, and the gap is now wide enough that families are feeling it in real, daily ways. The grocery store is just where most of us feel it most immediately, most personally, most often. Here's what's coming. Climate disruption is going to keep creating volatility in harvests. Droughts, floods, heat events, these affect crop yields, and that affects prices. That volatility is likely to be a permanent feature going forward, not a temporary one. Meanwhile, there are ongoing conversations in the industry about further consolidation, more mergers, more acquisitions, and food deserts, areas where affordable, fresh food simply isn't available, are expanding. They used to be primarily an urban problem. Now they're showing up in suburban communities, middle-class communities, places where people thought that kind of scarcity didn't apply to them. That's not a prediction. It's already happening. So here's where we land. What you've been feeling at the grocery store is real. The anxiety at the checkout is real. The mental math you're doing, deciding between the name brand and the store brand, putting something back, wondering how you're going to stretch the budget another 2 weeks. That's millions of people right now, not just you. The worker who has to explain the smaller OJ carton, the cafeteria worker who can't afford to serve eggs, the nurse who got a raise and still feels behind, they're all living in the same economic reality you are. You're not imagining it. You're not failing. The system that's supposed to deliver affordable food to working families is not doing its job. And it's not an accident. Recognizing that naming it clearly is the first and most important step, because the worst thing you can do is blame yourself for something that was engineered way above your pay grade. Share this with someone who needs to hear that, because I promise you, they're feeling it too.